All right, guys, here we go. Official Heart and Panic guitar lesson, and make sure to pay very close attention because I left notes about how I wrote the song and what the parts are inspired by in the margins of the tab so that you guys can kind of get an idea for it. And it's kind of a throwback to how painters used to talk about who inspired their paintings when they were doing studies based on them. So we're going to kick it right off with the intro. The intro was inspired by a band called Tangled Hair. It's off their first EP, and it's really similar to a 5/4 time riff that they do. So 11 on your A, 11 on your B, barring the 8 with your index finger. And do it in 5. So after we do the... It's going to be kind of like a G chord, so you're going to bar the 3rd fret with your index finger. And then you're going to hammer on the rest of a C minor with your middle finger and ring finger. So you want to hammer on the 4th fret of your B string with your middle finger, and then you want to hammer on the 5th fret of your G string with your ring finger. And then after we nail down those 2 frets, you're going to hammer on the 10th fret of your G string with your middle finger on your tapping hand. And then you're going to tap the 11th fret of your A string with your index finger. And then you're going to lift up so that you are just hitting that bar. And then you're going to hammer back onto that C minor. And then again with your tapping finger, while you're holding the C minor up here, you're going to play the 8th fret on your D string with your index finger on your tapping hand. And then with the middle finger of your tapping hand, you're going to play the 8th fret of your B string. And I've let go of the C minor as I pull up after that, so we'll do that again. And then when you pull up, play through the chord. First time I only hammer on the 10th fret of my E string with my middle finger on my tapping hand. So that whole part. So that's the first one. We'll do it from the beginning because it all kind of flows together. And then we're going to go back up to the 5 time. We're going to play all the way through that first riff. And then we're going to hit an accent on the G note of our E string, so the 3rd fret of your E string. I use my middle finger here, but you could use your index finger if you want. So you play your 11th fret of your B string. I use the index finger of my tapping hand. And the 10th fret of your E string, I use the middle finger of my tapping hand. And then we're going to go into the verse. So I'll do that whole riff from the beginning again. So we're going to go into the verse now. I have a couple notes down at the bottom too. So that part changed during tracking. I didn't have this note in there. It was just a straight. And I like having the bass note in there to kind of keep things anchored while we go through it. All right, so let's go on to the next part. We're going to go into verse 1. Things get a lot easier in this part. So we're going to tap with our index finger onto the 4th fret of your E string, tap onto the 5th fret of your G string with your middle finger, and tap onto the 6th fret of your B string with your ring finger, and these are all on your fretting hand. And you should be able to hear them. Tap nice and hard so you can hear the notes. And then we're going to tap on the 8th fret of the D string with your index finger of your tapping hand, 8th fret of your B string with the middle finger of your tapping hand. Let it ring out nice, and we're going to do that twice. And then we're going to go into the next one. So you're going to use this kind of chord shape. I use this chord shape all the time. I should probably know what it's called, but I don't. So we're going to play the 3rd fret of the A string with my index finger, the 1st fret of your D string, with my middle finger, the 3rd fret of my G with my ring finger, and the 3rd fret of my B with my pinky. And I'm going to slide up to the 4th fret of my B string with my pinky. Alright, minor 9th, cool. So that's that part. I'm going to going to tap on to 18 on your D string and 18 on your B string up top after you go through that little arpeggio. And then we're going to go up. It's a pretty quick transition here. So that next riff, bar the 6th fret with your index finger, and then play the 8th fret with your ring finger on your D string, 8th fret on your B string with your pinky. We're actually going to hammer on to that 8th fret with your pinky. And then we're going to tap 12 on your D string with your index finger and your tapping hand. And then with your middle finger, the 11th fret of the B string. All right, and so that part repeats. Okay, and then the next part, you're going to do the same first 3 notes, pretty much the same, but you're going to change where your ring finger ends up. So you're going to index finger, 4th fret on your E string, and then middle finger, 5th fret on your G string, ring finger, 6th fret on your E, and then you're still gonna play the 8th fret on your D string with your index finger on your tapping hand, 8th fret on your B string with the middle finger on your tapping hand. Do that twice. And then we're gonna do the same minor 9th shape up here. We're going to slide up with our pinky. Instead of sliding up to the 4, we're going to slide up all the way to the 6th fret. And then we're going to reach our index finger back here. And then use your index finger to play the 4th fret of your G string. And then instead of having that, your 6th barred, we're going to go and play the full major chord up here. 6 on your A string, 8 on your D string, 8 on your G string, 8 on your B string, and we're just playing that like I would play a barred major chord. Hammer on the 9th fret of your B string with your pinky, and then tap the 17th fret with your index finger and your tapping hand, 16th fret with the middle finger and your tapping hand. So that whole part. And then from the beginning of the verse all the way through. Next, we're going to go into the chorus, and this part repeats. So you get a lot of equity out of learning this part. So first we're going to do this C shape. So the important notes to hit here are the 3rd fret of your A string, which I use my index finger barred on the 3rd fret, so you can hit the 3rd fret all the way down there, and then I use my ring finger to hit the 5th fret of my D string here. You can bar the whole 3rd fret, but you don't have to. I like how it adds a little bit more body to it, but the idea, you kind of get the idea across as long as you get the C in there. So it's just a nice straight up boom, 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 boom for that first part, and then we're going to do the heartbeat. And so this is an ode at invalids. So I like how it's like an anxious kind of pent up part, sounding like a heartbeat, and invalids has a lot of those stuff like that, and you hear some of that in Lonely Habits as well. And Pete from Invalids is like a massive inspiration to me. So after your straight up part, you're gonna do and like I said, anchoring your thumb while you come back down. So it's mute. You use the back of your hand to mute, and I do it up on the fretboard. Mute, and then back up. However you have to, back up, rake it. And that thumb kind of keeps you grounded. And that's how you do that part. A lot of practice to kind of like get it perfect. But you'll get there. And then the next part, it's actually a lot easier with a 1 on a capo on the 1st fret, so that you don't have to do this F bar chord, which is like really awkward. But anyway, so we're going to start it with kind of F minor bar chord, and then tap on the 6th fret of your A string with your index finger and your tapping hand, 5th fret on your G string with the middle finger of your tapping hand. And we're going to slide all the way up to the 8th fret of your G string, to lift up and try to hit as much of that F chord as you can. And then we're going to do that tap on the 8th fret of your D string with your index finger, 8th fret of your B string with your middle finger. You recognize that part. And then we're going to move into this A flat major 7th. And you're going to repeat 8 taps. Now if you play that A flat major, you're going to go 8 on your D string with your index finger, 8 on your B string with your middle finger. And then slide up to the 11th fret, and when you pull off, hit the rest of the chord. And then you're going to tap the 12th fret of your D string with your index finger, 11th fret of your E string with your middle finger. And you're going to do that twice. And that's the chorus. And the last time, I usually cheat a little bit. And I don't hit that 11 on the E because it's just too hard to get to the next part. So the tab here is identifying kind of like an ideal world, but I couldn't do that. so yeah, I kind of cheat a little bit and drop it out there. All right, and next we go into the first bridge, which is super cool. This is something that Scott wanted to do longer, and I was totally into it. The legato here, the 8th note, like you hear that a lot in our more recent stuff because of Hikes, this band that just put out a new album called Malachita, and they do that a bunch in some of my favorite songs. So Extra Mile by Hikes is kind of where the inspiration for doing those. And they felt a little bit like a faux pas for the longest time, like doing stuff like that. But then Hikes did it, and it sounded really cool. And I was like, man, this was never not cool. People were just having me believe that it wasn't cool. So this part is really built around that idea that I just really wanted to do these legato bits. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to play one of those minor ninths. You're going to play the 8th fret of your A string with your middle finger, 6th fret of your D string with your index finger, and then the 8th fret of your G and B strings respectively with your ring finger and pinky finger. And then you're going to tap 12 on your D string, 11 on your B string together. And then without picking, you're just going to hammer on to the 8th fret of your A string. And then on the way down, you're going to use your ring finger and your pinky to hit the 8th fret of your D string and your B string respectively. And then you're going to go to the 6th fret with those fingers on the same strings. And then you're going to slide up. And we're going to do that a bunch of times, so get really familiar with that. So the first time we do it, we go... When we start it again, this chord, but instead of doing this tap, we're actually going to... So we're going to go open on the D string, hammer on the 6th fret of your D string with your index finger, hammer on the 8th fret of your D string with your middle finger, hammer on the 10th fret of your D string with your pinky. And so after you do the hammer on, I actually start the hammer on with the back of the fingernail of my index finger. So it looks kind of weird, and it took a long time for me to kind of target it right, but I would recommend if you do it, don't get into that habit, actually lift up with your index finger to play that note. And if I could train myself out of slapping it with the back of my hand, I would, but I just slap it while muting the rest of my strings so that I get it right every time. So the first ending is... We keep doing that hammer on. And then the other endings are just hammer on the 17th fret of your D string and the 16th fret of your B string. And then a different ending is the 18th fret of your D string, 18th fret of your B string. And it's basically just mixing those up. Oh yeah, then there's that part. So after your hammer-ons, after your little hammer-ons like that, your legato up, you're going to go tap this way like we usually do. So after you do this tap, you go tap your D string with your index finger on the 6th fret, B string with your middle finger on your 6th fret. And you're already moving this hand up with your index finger to the 14th fret of your A string, 13th fret of your G string, and then we're going to do that riff again. Basically, after you can put those parts together and get to the actual rhythm. So I'll play it from the beginning in the actual way that it's meant to be played. Back to the chorus. And at the end of that chorus, we go into another bridge. Part is also easier with a capo on the first fret. So we're just going to do that minor ninth chord where we slide up to the 4th fret of our B string with our pinky at the end of it. In 5 a bunch of times until you're going to do it 3 times, and then the last time you're going to do it in 6 because you're going to add onto the end of it, and that movement of my hand is really important so that I can actually get this hammer on in and hold it down while I do the taps. So that riff is a dangerous game with compressors and reverbs because sometimes it lets the note ring out a little bit too much, and when you slide, there's still sustain going on when you slide back down to the 3rd fret, so it sounds like a, and you don't want it to sound like that, you just want it to sound like. So lifting your finger up at the right time and using the right amount of compression and reverb on that part is really important. But I love that part, that 11. Very nice. All right, and then we get into the second verse, which fortunately is easier than the first verse. It's just straight chords. This part was inspired by Brand New, one of my favorite bands, and also Say Anything with the vocals. So we're going to play the 4th fret on your E string with your index finger, the 8th fret on your D string with your ring finger, 8th fret on your D string with on your B string with your middle finger, your pinky finger, excuse me. Starting with the back of my hand here. There's definitely a more ergonomic way to play this, but I play it this way, and if you want to be OG, you gotta play it this way too. 6 times, and we're going to go to that minor ninth chord, and up to this E flat major. There's some creative mutes in there. All right, so that's that part. Pretty straightforward. And those mutes are, that's what I mean by the Say Anything energy. Max Bemis from Say Anything does tons of mutes like that, and I absolutely love it. All right, so here we come. We're coming towards the end of the song. There is a second bridge after that second verse where I'm just doing this riff from the first verse. We're just going to do it 6 times. And then we're going to do the heartbeat. Then the chorus, you guys know this one. So on and so forth, and then we move on to the end of the song, which fortunately I have a little love you Pete, a little love note to Pete Davis from Invalids again, because I love Pete Davis, and that part is just like straight up contrived. It kind of feels like it's from that, you know, directly from his style. So after we do that, we go back into the chorus. And then at the end of it, you know that there's that extra balance over. And then after that, we're just going to play the same thing we've been playing in the verses with the hammer on the 4th fret of your E string with your index finger, the 5th fret of your G string with your middle finger, the 6th fret of your E string this time. Usually it would be on the B string, but the 6th fret of your E string, hammer on the 8th fret of your G, 8th fret of your E string. Twice, and then we're going to move our tapping hand up 1 string. So we're going to be tapping on D and B. Do that 4. So we'll do it in 4 twice as we do that. There's no blame where this high reason why I say great grandpa vocals is because there's this band that the band Post Madonna eventually moved a lot of their members to, called Great Grandpa, and they have a female vocalist who's amazing, and she has these kind of like, I'm breaking into like an emotional frailty moments, and that's how she sings in those moments. But it's more powerful. I think she's better at it than I am, but that's where the inspiration came from, and that's why that note is in there. There's no blame where there's hide. And you do it 4, so this is the second time through, and after you finish the second time through, we're going to do the same riff in 3, so we're just dropping a beat off the end. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to do this twice. 3, and the last time, we're going to leave the taps off as we move into the very end of it. This is another part of the song that Scott wanted to make longer. You guys heard in the demo and in the original Guitar Pro version of this, this is where the song ended. This part of the song is like very much, you know, I think this is what I like to do in music. As much as like my tapping and all the really impressive stuff is like what brings people in, I think these emotional moments are actually what I like performing. I think this is my favorite thing to perform. Okay, so yeah, it's just that stretchy chord, that A flat. And a couple of mutes to get us to the next part, that minor 9. 1, 2, and a couple more mutes there to transition up. And then another one of those Max Bemis style. Just like the song originally ended, just happens several bars and a minor emotional breakdown later. So there it is. That is how to play Heart and Panic on guitar. One of my favorite songs that I've ever written, because it brings in elements of almost all of my favorite artists. I feel like it really is a collection of all of my inspirations, and it very accurately reflects that, especially this final product. The end of the song really allowed me to bring in a lot of the indie rock and kind of like punk influences that I'd left behind in the more technical version of the song.